I feel like it's actually kind of ironic that you decided to wear that shirt over here today, given our general topic. So, since this is actually a hot topic in the nation again, I'm wondering if you have any like specific experience that you want to share around it.
I mean, there's so many, probably too many to count, but the one that always comes to mind, I was in a meeting in my new role, freshly graduated PhD, in a administrative position. And so I am facilitating a relatively small group meeting, and a faculty member, person, I'm trying not to name names or be too descriptive, walks into the meeting and late. They walk into the meeting late. They sit down and start clipping their nails. And I
Yo,
was blown for so many reasons, besides the fact that that is just disgusting.
the level of
Like,
disrespect is high.
it's so nasty. This person will probably never hear it, but if you do, I hope you repent and think about
Repentance is necessary.
just wild. But I also knew that.
So wait, because the theme
Yes.
is diversity. Were you the only black person in the room?
Oh, I was not the only black person, but no one said anything. No, there were only two of us. No one said anything. No one commented to him, and I was just.
Oh, it was a him. Uh-oh, we're starting to narrow it down. You got to be careful.
But
You're no longer anonymizing.
I think the problem is, and it's interesting because at the time I didn't know how to respond. I knew, or I felt that part of the reason that this person was treating me this way, and it was allowed to, the other people in the room allowed it to happen. I was a young black woman in a room full of mostly older white men.
Mhm.
And I knew that my identity was playing a role in the ways that I was being disrespected in this space. Right, that I am a diverse person in this room. And it threw me. I mean, you knew at the time. Like
I've
threw me
heard
off.
this story. So the good thing about hearing and knowing your friend's stories really well is that like there's a new little wrinkle or detail each time you get the retelling. And so I learned something new about it each time.
But we've grown. I've grown. We've grown since then. And I think that what's important is recognizing this idea of being a DEI or diversity hire isn't a bad thing. It shouldn't derail you. And I think that we've really spent a lot of time in the last, couple of years in our career, really being able to understand how do we, one, address it, but also like flip it, right? Like you
Yeah.
are lucky to have me in this space.
And I mean, it's education, training, and experience. And as educators, that's kind of like, hey, you should pay us so we can implement these systems in your organization.
Yo, parents, yo, parents, yo, parents and professors. Yo, parents, yo, parents, yo, parents and professors.
What's going on, everybody? I am Dr. Michael Stephen Williams.
I'm Dr. Marjorie Dorme-Williams.
And today on the Parents and Professors podcast, we're talking about the diversity hire label, how it affects us differently, and why we refuse to let other people's skepticism become our limitation.
For real. And so I think one important thing before we get into the conversation is even identifying what does it mean to be a diversity hire. Clearly in the news right now, DEI and diversity hires and affirmative action all get rolled up into what I see as this black or brown person took a spot from a white person who is quote unquote more qualified for this position or role.
Yeah, that's why they shorten it to DEI. It makes it easier to say like a slur.
Yes. Like, oh, look at those DEIs.
Exactly. Like Pete Hegseth.
Right. So the assumption is you only have your position because of your identity in some way, right? Your race, your gender, whatever it is, rather than your qualifications. And while qualifications aren't everything, as someone who is eminently qualified to do the things that I do, it is so infuriating.
I mean, I think that the whole idea of calling somebody a DEI hire is to try to undermine their credibility, right?
Yes.
So you don't deserve to be in that seat. You don't have the education, training, etc. that makes it, even if that's true. And so I think that I've developed a little bit of imperviousness to that foolishness. But
How so?
but recognize, so I think imposter syndrome is a real thing.
Yes.
I think that the people who should have imposter syndrome often do not. And that creates this like nice little cocktail of foolishness. But part of us even having a conversation is really thinking about like how do you equip people to withstand it in a meaningful way.
So when you say imposter syndrome, what does that mean to you? How do you define that? Because I think it's important to highlight what that means in the context of this DEI diversity hire conversation?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome, and let me say that I'm deeply oversimplifying because I read an imposter phenomenon related manuscript like every other day as associate editor of the Journal of Diversity in Higher Ed. And I'm not kidding because it's all quant, so I'm doing that regularly. However, super shortcut imposter phenomenon is essentially people feeling like they don't deserve or they don't belong in spaces that they're occupying because they tricked everybody. Like essentially.
It's like, I got in.
Yeah, like so it's a way that usually minoritized populations are taught to undervalue or believe that the only reason that they're in positions of power, influence, uplift is because they were given a handout and they don't really belong there and they're going to be exposed at some later date. And so like this idea of like fear of being your full self because you're going to be exposed as somebody that doesn't belong in these spaces, that's kind of imposter phenomenon, like super quick and dirty.
We'll put some more resources in the show notes for folks who want to do more work, either learning about it or thinking about strategies to manage dealing with imposter syndrome if you're dealing with that.
Yeah. And scholar shout out to Dr. Donte Bernard, one of my colleagues at Mizzou who does really interesting work in that space.
So when you think about, imposter syndrome and these conversations around DEI hires, how do you think your experience has helped you to grow or to learn from having to navigate that, especially as a Black man in the academy?
Oh, being a Black man in the academy is the most fun thing ever.
Say more. Tell me more, Michael.
Well, there's so many stories of disrespect that I think are hilarious to me in hindsight that were foundational to me getting where I was. And like me already knowing not only the terminology, but like what you're trying to do by referring to me that way. I think it's funny to think about all the different ways that you can experience it and like going away from being afraid of it to starting to embrace it. So to me, somebody calling me a DEI hire is like somebody calling me the N-word. I was like, I use that myself. and in fact, thank you for the compliment. Like, what would I want to be called but the realest nigga you ever met? Yeah. So there's that piece of it. But then there's the, check my record. I graduated from Villanova University with an honors degree in management information systems major. I went to the University of Pennsylvania for my master's in higher education management. I did my PhD at The Ohio State University. I've been to all your universities. I've jumped through all of your hoops. I've scored well on all your standardized tests. So me knowing that I'm above reproach and that like I far exceed the expectations that you probably misplaced on me because you don't know anything about me.
Right.
Like nobody rolls up onto me on the street and is like, you look like a co-parent with a PhD and a university professor.
No.
Right.
No one
and even if I'm wearing like the costume,
history
like
of-
you know how you dress like Sherlock Holmes to try to look more like a professor. Shout out to shout to Charles H.F. Davis, the third.
Not his wardrobe.
Because he be I won't
he
say
be rocking ascots.
exactly. I saw this cat on social media hitting the blunt coming from the Jeezy concert, the orchestra joint, just the other day. And so, yeah, there are certain ways that you're defying expectations just by your presence in the academy to begin with. And I know that and I'm excited by it and I embrace it.
I think that when I reflect on all of the different parts of my academic, administrative, educational, professional journey, it never ceases to amaze me how things that are presented, so, you propose an idea or, like you said, something that is evidence-based and backed by research and has been demonstrated as a good practice. And here are all the ways that this thing would benefit you. And my saying it in a meeting earns me the label of dictator. And while I will say, hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, wait a minute.
Hold on.
For context.
I'm taking off my professional hat and I'm taking off my co-parent hat.
I know what you're going to do. Now, for context, in the outside world, I think I would make a phenomenal benevolent dictator. But in this context, as a professional, that's not how I show up. I am so nice and kind and considerate.
Well-dressed.
Listen, I was gonna say, you know what? Yeah, I be stunting on these hoes. So like, I know what I look like when I show up in a room. I know what I sound like when I'm in a room.
Well, I have a question though, because I
Yes.
think there's a point that is interesting to me. And some of what I hear you talking about is like the difference in the stereotypes that you have to face.
Yes.
So like as a Black woman, I feel like your stereotypes are different than my stereotypes.
Oh,
Like
mhm.
I know for a fact, right? When somebody sees me as like the safe Black man, when I'm like, oh, that's Teddy Bear Mike, and he's like he gives
Oh.
out like love and hugs, like the mental picture that's conjured for me is that like people just paint me like a Care Bear, which I'm not opposed to. Like if you see me father my daughters, like
Yes,
like I
that's
don't mind being
actually-
like fluffy and well, I'm a squishmallow, you know, like step your game up. But-
Squishmallows. We have so many in this
You know,
house.
like the issue is you're either the safe Black guy that like
Yes.
everybody could trust and it's like everybody's best friend like they see on the TV shows, or if you express any discontent, then you're the angry Black guy. And as soon as you become the angry Black guy, like people try to use a version of that to dismiss everything that you do,
Mhm.
even if you're just telling the truth. And
Yeah.
it's just, he's telling me the truth in a tone that I don't like. So
Yes, it does make a difference. I think so angry Black woman is definitely a stereotype or a trope that have been, especially in my earlier career, very aware of. I think that now I care way less.
you have enough experience to care less.
I have enough experience to care less because I recognize that there are a couple of things happening. One, a lot of this is a you problem, and by you I mean the people on the projecting end, right? That you assume whatever it is about my qualifications or my ability to do the work or be in a space or why I'm in a particular role. And if that's the case, that is a you problem. And it's a problem that we all have socially, right? Like this is not just a white people problem. So I want to say that. In the same way that these issues of being seen as a DEI hire are not only for Black and brown people. However, I also know that at the end of the day, I have been chosen for this role for a reason. I have gone through an interview. People have looked at my record. They've seen my resume. They've looked at my work. In some cases, I was recruited. In fact, in every case, I was recruited to come to the place to do the thing. So like, that's a you problem. Like your lack of belief in me, that's not going to stop my checks, homie.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's a lack of belief thing.
Prejudice by
but I
all
do
of
think
the
that-
things, right? Like,
I think it raises the really important point. So when you say that's a you problem, I think that's a real thing. Like it is a you problem. But what people need to be equipped to know is that yes, that's a you problem, and I cannot let that affect me.
yes.
Because racism exists doesn't mean that that's an excuse to not try or to not put your best foot forward or
Right.
to feel like an imposter or to remove yourself from spaces where your presence could really make a difference. And I think that transition to action, right? So that it's a really important mindset shift. Yes, you're going to encounter these type of issues, but it's really your reaction to it that
Yeah.
dictates everything.
And I think that framing is really helpful because for professionals in whatever space you occupy, but I think particularly in education and academia, it really needs to be driven by a shift from focusing on the problem, which is, people think I'm a DEI hire or a diversity hire or that I'm not qualified. And instead, I think you really have to, and I think this is what we've done, like focus on you, focus on your purpose, focus on your mission. Don't let other people's opinions, beliefs, prejudices, biases, whatever, deter you from doing the work that you came to do.
And document everything.
So, listen,
Because they will try you. And there's nothing better than receipts.
I firmly believe that people's work should speak for themselves, and shifting from, ooh, you're a diversity hire, to like, yes, I absolutely am a diversity hire, and you're lucky to have me. That is weren't we just talking about?
Oh, I mean,
I feel like we were just talking
that's
about
my
that.
actual life.
Literally,
It's funny because many of the
literally
offices,
diversity hires.
many of the offices that brought me to the university that I am currently employed by no longer exist, and
Would that
those
include
very
the,
offices helped me make sure that I stayed on track to get tenure.
Yes.
So I'm a proud diversity hire. You need me.
You
Who else looks like me, thinks like me, can reach the segments that I can? You're lucky that I choose to give my services
Yes.
to this space. I could be getting paid way more doing this in corporate.
the
But
value
I
add.
love it.
Value add. What is my value add? And how do I not just, right? I know this because I know my work. I know our students. I know our graduates. I know about the fact that there are people who their lives are fundamentally different and better because they've encountered you in a class or have encountered me in a class or have worked with us on a project. And so I think one of the things that folks really need to think about when we talk about this shifting of your mindset, document your work. And not just, we all have CVs and resumes and you should keep those updated. I feel like that's a professor tip. But also find ways to share with your, supervisors or your department chair or whoever it is. Yeah, this is what I've been doing. Here's my value add. I share weekly updates with my supervisor. Bong, here's what I got done this week.
Bong. Is that in the subject line?
I should. Bong.
So I do want to hear that. So because you just started boogieing, and I want to slow down a little bit.
I'm
Because
excited.
documentation strategy means something different for
Mm.
a professor than for somebody who's in like a policy space or right. And so
Yes.
I want to tease out some of the differences before you just speed through
Sorry.
all the ways that you document. So to me, documentation is my CV,
Yes.
but it's remembering that almost everything that I do in larger spaces that serve an organization are things that should go on the CV. So recording your effort appropriately. I think that was something that I didn't really know how to do until I was getting my tenure promotion materials together and people were kind of talking about, oh, don't you do this? Don't you do this? I was like, oh, you're supposed to put that on your CV. So yes, if you're leading a council, if you're the chair of a committee for an organization, if you were on the editorial board for something, like those are some of the low-hanging fruit things that you need to make sure that you're appropriately accounting for, in addition to your CV lines. So
Yeah.
your publications, your presentations, all that kind of stuff.
When you get asked to serve on committees or commissions or people are looking for experts to participate in working group, like all of that counts. When you spend time providing training or development for your colleagues or your students or whoever, anything that you do that is not just in your job description, but all of the little things that we also
Mhm.
do along the way. I think I'm going to speak for myself. I won't say we. I know I often think, well, it just needed to be done, so I'm going to do it and
Mhm.
keep it pushing, right? That's great. It did need to be done, but also things like that need to be documented because I can also then turn around and say, you hired me to do X and I've done X very well, but I've also added Y and Z, and here's how your diversity hire has brought value to the organization. And so really thinking again about the fact that, you should frame it as like, you need me, right? Like these organizations need.
But like not too pompously, yo, because that's also something. Sometimes you'll find out by saying it
Okay.
like that indeed they did not need her.
The narrator.
Exactly. The narrator comes in and you kick to the curb because you want to get too spicy with it. Yeah. Because you can deliver the message with a tone that's appropriate and that has it received in a way that
Yes.
it was like, hey, I'm really enjoying my time here. I'm grateful for the opportunity that you gave me, whether I was a diversity hire or not. And here's how I'm making good on your good decision making.
Yes. And I think that makes me also think about the fact that we're not ever functioning in silos, right? We work with people, even as faculty members, you still have to engage with people in different ways, in different spaces. And so thinking about your network, thinking about the people who can support you, who can sponsor you, who can help connect you to other opportunities and resources, like all of that is a really important part of, I think, being a professional, but also finding ways to combat this, again, this DEI or diversity hire stigma that sometimes comes up for people. And so you do, I think, a really good job of mentoring at multiple levels and building those types of relationships. So I wonder if you have any strategies for folks to think about when they're building, alliances or finding folks to help support them in strategic ways.
I have like lived experience that I'm going through right now.
Oh, tell me
with this.
more.
So I have a mentee of mine who I'm working pretty closely with, and this is the importance of keep in touch with the people who have your back and are in your corner. But he went through a pretty sudden need for a job transition and sent me all of his resume materials. And each time that I go through and I kind of apply the professional touch that somebody who's been doing this for 20 years, supporting students in different ways applies,
Yeah.
he's like, oh my God, this is so much better than what I had. I need to develop that skill. I need to be able to do what you're doing to these documents. So you fix my resume, it looks so much better. You fix my cover letter, it looks so much better. Like, how can I learn how to do that for myself? And I was like, that's not your job. Like, the people who really know you and who support you are going to have a better view of who you are and what you do than you do.
Yeah.
I was like, the first time I tried to do my CV and like put together my personal and teaching statements, I gave them to Strayhorn. He beat them like redheaded circus monkeys.
Mercilessly.
But what he put in place and what he helped me see was the way that he saw me as a scholar. And so I feel like when you're talking about building alliances, I really do think it's connected to like a lot of the topics that we talk about, like mentoring, belonging, building alliances. It's knowing how to put people in position to really see you the way that you should be seen from a professional standpoint. Like, I should have a way higher opinion of you than you have of yourself. And it's okay for that to be reflected in your materials, but you can't get that input if you don't give me a chance to help you.
Right.
And so like reminding like, hey, you have a network for a reason and I love you and I have a million things going on, but I will always find time. What I've started to do to honor my own commitment to like continue to support people is be much more realistic on turnaround time though.
Right.
So I was like, you're probably not getting this till the middle of next week. Like I will make time, I'll put it on my calendar, but this is not a quick turnaround type of situation.
Right. The other thing that this makes me think about too, and I feel like I've heard this in multiple spaces, both academic and professional, in thinking about who you choose to serve in those roles. And I think some people have a concern, especially if they are the diversity hire and there are no other diverse individuals maybe in their workspace, right? They might be the only one
Yeah, it
of
feels
whatever.
like a setup.
Right. So how do you what would we say to those people who are like, well, there are no other Black folks, for example, at my organization or in my unit, or somebody that I feel like I can talk to, or there are no other women, or whatever those identity markers might be.
Well, I mean, I think you got to be careful, right? So I wish that there being other Black people in an organization automatically made me feel safer within that organization.
Ooh, spicy. Say more,
Because
Michael.
some of the greatest fools that I've had to deal with are people who identify like me but think differently or move differently, right? So just because you could say you're Black, well, like all Skinfolk and Kinfolk.
Yo, true. We're getting that on a shirt. 'Cause I
Like-
feel like truer words
Like,
have never been spoken.
like just because you a guy, like that don't mean you not
Right. I have had, I think some of my most disappointing professional moments have been from people who shared similar identities as I did, and then totally either threw me under the bus or disrespected me in such egregious ways that I was just like,
Yeah, I've seen some bananas Uncle Ruckus level engagement, and it's always crazy to me because I'm like, do you see yourself? Like, do you hear yourself? Do you know how other people that are not me make sense of you?
and I'm not your enemy, right? Like,
Because you're below my notice anyway.
this is unnecessary.
Like, who that doesn't have hire and fire ability over me would I possibly be worried about at work? Like,
Do you think it's because people feel threatened?
I know some people it's because they feel threatened because they make it known.
There can only be one, like Highlander.
No, it's just more like I'm threatened by your presence. I'm threatened by your expertise. I'm
But
threatened
really,
that people like
do you
you.
think
Like,
it's because they? So
Yeah,
we
I'm
can
threatened
only
that you're-
have
oh,
one Black male comedian who's at the top right now. We can only have one female rapper who's at the top right
Oh,
now.
man,
Like we
we-
do this in workspaces too,
we
right?
blue ocean strategy out here, yo. There's enough for all of us.
I mean,
We all have our own space where we don't have to compete. I'm not going to compete to be myself.
yes,
I'm irreproducible. So if you think that you're competing with me, we're already off to
that's
the
a you
wrong-
problem.
Exactly. Like we're back to that's a you problem. We're not competing. We take a completely different space.
So yeah, I just, well, I eat fire and brimstone for breakfast sometimes. I just think that
You've been remarkably calm during this conversation as
I
you've relived some crazy moments.
am just okay. Really quickly, and then we can move. I recall someone that I work with, and I thought we were work besties. I mean, friends. Like I knew about their life, they knew about my life. I knew about their divorce and their new boyfriend and their living situation. I mean, I thought, oh, we're cool. Like this is somebody to be trusted.
That's where you fucked up.
When I tell you that when this person also threw me under the bus, there were tears involved. There were
We on demon time. Because I have a story that's very similar, and I'll get to that right after.
it was so wild. And so I just again felt
Well, you have to let somebody in close enough for them to like do real damage, right? So
Yes.
So I have a similar experience, and it's somebody who like didn't have any real proximity to me, but they lied and said they did because they got stories from somebody that had closer proximity to me,
mm-hmm.
and it's very interesting.
Someone with shared identities.
Yeah, like it's
Okay.
very interesting, like what people will attempt to weaponize, and it's also very interesting, like what people will offer you with the expectation that you'll never weaponize it either. So like, why would you tell me all that? Why would you try to get that close to me? Why would you have me this deep into your life and your situation if you're going to try to stab me in the back the first opportunity you got? What was that? Were you trying to make yourself a dramatic figure? Were you trying to make yourself more likable? Is it like you just wanted to be able to walk up behind me so you could get the knife in deeper when you tried it?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so like what are the motivations? I guess that's the question too. Because I do find that troubling. I find it particularly troubling when people will profess like a Sankofa, like kumbaya, there need to be more of a type of attitude in public. And then like the reality is you're doing things to undermine the Black community
Oh.
at every opportunity you get. And I
Yeah.
see you. And other people see you too.
I mean, I think ultimately that for those types of people, and this gets back to the like fire and brimstone for breakfast. Like that's fuel. Like okay, you can feel free to what is it? Feel free
to hate on me.
Yeah, cool, whatever. Like I know, and I recognize that part of this has come from over a decade of experience in the field, and recognizing that one, nobody dictates. No, you shouldn't let anybody dictate how you show up, especially in professional spaces, and being a diversity hire or a DEI or insert whatever the latest insulting word, somebody who talks about CRT, right? Like,
Oh, they trying to outlaw that, yo.
remember
It's
when
Fahrenheit 451
CRT
out
was
here.
the thing, and people are like, well, we don't do that, so this is fine. Whatever the thing is, ultimately, you shouldn't let that sway you. And I think, like we said earlier, right? Like you should focus on your purpose, focus on your mission, and ultimately let that be motivation. Like, cool, I'm just gonna prove my haters wrong. I mean, that's how I move.
That's how many of my favorite musical artists move. It's like this creation of haters.
That's great.
No, but I feel like whatever your motivational structures are, I prefer intrinsic motivation.
That's
like,
good too.
yeah, like I'd like you to want to do a good job because it matters to you and that's a value of yours.
And
not just because you have haters, right?
Hi, haters.
Yeah, but but to that end, if we're thinking about motivational structures and you're using whatever you're using for fuel, like
Mhm.
I prefer to use electric and to burn as clean as possible. I don't want to use
Give
diesel.
me coal.
Yeah, you want to like
Coal, baby.
like if you're gonna turn it into fuel, right? Well, you tell me, like, how do you turn it into fuel? What's your strategy?
So when I think about strategies, there are a couple of ways that I think about this. So one is sort of what do you do in the immediate, right? So the nail clipping or being called a dictator in that moment. And I think it's important to respond and to ask people to clarify. Help me understand, or could you explain to me what that means? I'm not quite sure I follow. Right? Could you?
It's like strategic curiosity.
Yeah, like, oh, tell me more about that. I'm not sure I follow. I don't understand. What does that mean to you? Any of those questions? Because I also think sometimes people don't realize what it is that they're saying. Like they might be trying to give you
Oh, you know,
a
that
compliment.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think giving people the benefit of the doubt is
Yes.
actually deserved sometimes,
Yes.
even if they touch one of your triggers.
Right. Because they may not realize. So don't always assume ill intent. It could just be, and this could be an opportunity for conversation. So ask clarifying questions, I think, is a really quick and easy way to engage without putting somebody on the defensive.
Yeah. Resisting people being defensive is a really important part of any kind of engagement around that. If you want the message to stick and you want people to change their behavior for the positive.
What would you say sort of in the immediate? How else would you respond?
I enjoy conflict. So
What is the opposite of conflict avoidance?
well, I'm not conflict avoidant, but I think
Conflict-seeking?
that it's interesting because I started incorporating a lot more strategies and like content in my equity and diversity classes about conflict resolution and like how you engage in conversations around like difficult, controversial, or topics where somebody could reasonably disagree with you with respect. And I don't want to have to apply them in my own life.
Wait
Like,
a minute.
I just want to
sorry.
confront. Like, what'd you say, son? Like, who you? I want to be like your brother on game night, right? Like,
Yo, fam.
Yeah, but I know from a real strategy standpoint, you can't really solve problems that you're not willing to confront.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of ways to confront that don't put people immediately on the defensive. And I do think asking questions, staying curious, and being open to interpretations that you didn't expect, or even explanations that you didn't expect. Like,
Yeah.
I think those are really good foundational things, because at the end of the day, there's no point in interacting with somebody if you don't have mutual purpose and mutual respect, right? Like, that's core idea from Crucial Conversations, is one of the books I have my students read. Mutual respect, mutual purpose. Why are we interacting with each other? Do we respect each other? Do we have a reason to interact? And if you can't answer that in the positive, like, you don't respect me and there's no purpose in me talking to you, then that's a conversation you exit.
Yeah. What was the book?
Crucial Conversations.
Okay.
3rd edition.
Just wanted to make sure that folks got it. We'll put the link in the show notes. So that's sort of the immediate term response. What do you think in terms of how folks can position themselves for the long term, right? We know that this problem is all this time and isn't going away anytime soon. So what do we think about, or what do we do for the long term?
Be excellent. Like, well,
Greatness.
if you're producing, so hold on, because that does make it sound like perseverance. Like one of those little posters they put on the wall where there's like a forest.
There's a mountain.
There's definitely like a stream of some sort.
Determination. It's just
But I really,
snow-capped.
I really do think that like the way to protect yourself is to be excellent, is to be a good citizen, is to be somebody who has really high work quality,
Yeah.
and to do that consistently. Like if you're consistently excellent and you're finding new ways to be great, what some people would call innovation, then you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, I think a version of that for me is back to thinking about your value and your worth to your space, your organization, your committees, your communities, your group, whatever the thing is, and to be indispensable, and not in a, I say this
Not in a
recognizing,
pompous way.
not in a
Yeah,
pompous way,
yeah.
but really like the value add means something, and people do recognize good work. People see good work, and when you are somebody who shows up consistently and does good work and contributes to the spaces that you occupy, that makes a huge difference.
It does, but I also think that you got to bring in the point about visibility too, because if you're doing all this great work and nobody knows about it, then that's a problem. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with what feels like self-promotion, but there also has to be the mentality and the mindset. The way that I would like share it with somebody is, if you're not going to promote yourself, then like who would?
Right.
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 And so making sure that your contributions are being honored, that they're visible, that other people within the organization, not just the people you're directly serving, but also people who could probably benefit from your help or your perspective across your organization. I think that's really important to pursue. And so like I might not be like an award chaser or like any of that kind of stuff, but I see the value of it because it brings additional attention to your work. And if you're doing good work, that's a great thing.
Yeah. And so your comment about, making sure others sees it, also that networking and community piece, mentoring is such a huge part of life like point blank period, that it's important that folks don't ignore that. And so to find the people who can support you, who see your talent and will help you make use of it, to build it, to develop it, is really important as well.
Yeah, and you need mentors across levels. So you need peer mentors, people that are like relatively similarly positioned to you, but that know how to articulate your value and worth in rooms that you might not enter. You need senior mentors who can give you game and teach you ways to navigate and like really save you time, because one of the beautiful things about powerful interpersonal relationships is that somebody can tell you a story and you could just not make that mistake or not put yourself in that situation, right? Like you
Hope
need
went through that,
OGs.
so you won't have to go through
Exactly.
that.
Hope did that. Like you need OGs. And then I think you really refine your offering by offering mentoring to the people coming up behind you.
Yeah.
Like that, here are the obstacles, here's the opportunities, but here's me refining what I think about it and what I thought was important through what I share with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the other thing that is important for us to recognize is that this is also something that takes work and effort and can be really draining. And so there's definitely a need to be resilient. There's a need to be strong, and there's a need to sort of make sure that we're being mindful of the fact that this is not always a personal issue, right? Like there's larger issues at play.
I mean, are you looking for systemic forces?
I've been trying to practice not using
Jargon? Like
I mean, essentially.
I mean, well, it is. So like the technical jargon that we use.
So what does a systemic issue
Yeah.
mean to someone who doesn't,
Yeah.
who isn't in the field or doesn't speak this language?
How do you translate systemic issue for a lay audience?
So I would say it's the difference between an individual problem, right? So I'm experiencing somebody insulting me or what I perceive to be an insult because of my identity and their assumptions about my qualifications. That's right. Me, Marjorie, dealing with this in my day-to-day. When we think about systemic issues, there are things that are above and beyond individual effort, right? So these are things that aren't simply about me or you as individuals. These are things that happen consistently in multiple spaces, in multiple ways, over time, and have nothing to do with the individual, right? Like you can replace me with anybody and there'd still be that problem.
Give me an example of a systemic issue versus an individual issue that our listeners could chew on. Like give me like how would you do it?
Okay, now I have to think the difference between a systemic issue versus an individual issue.
Yeah, because that's you kind of created a dichotomy between that. And so I think of it,
Oh.
you're talking about it like almost like
I'm
levels,
sorry.
like unit of analysis, which is still confusing.
So
So
things, right? Because it could be both things, right? So I can have this individual issue, but that doesn't mean it's not a systemic problem.
So what's a systemic problem?
Racism is really easy.
No,
It's
but
everywhere.
racism isn't
not.
one that people agree with. So if you actually subscribe to racism as a sincere problem in the United States, then you
I mean, it's
would have
global.
to, but globally even, you couldn't be
Produce
MAGA.
enough evidence.
Yeah, you couldn't be MAGA and do that, right?
Wait,
Or like you
wait.
couldn't be somebody who actually sees the weight of evidence over the years and is still racist.
But
So-
isn't that what racism is? Like
But
it has nothing to do with logic.
But that's what I'm saying. So I don't think it's a good example because it's a logical example. You need something that people could agree on. So there are plenty of people that think that racism doesn't exist and it doesn't affect them until the policies that they shout to get changed
I
are
see.
changed and it hurts them.
Something that is both individual and systemic.
Yeah. So I would use being poor. So when you're poor, I feel like there's a Chappelle skit about that. Like when you're poor, you feel like it's just you.
Oh.
Yeah, but no, it's not an individual problem. This is a systemic problem. It's because people are undereducated. It's because people are undertrained. It's because
This is the challenge with talking about systemic issues. No one agrees on them because I could say, well, my parents came to this country from Haiti where they had less than nothing. They came from a third world country and came to America and were able to do all of the things and get their education. And me and my brothers are all
both become
successful.
pharmacists and
what's
put
the wrong with
you
poor
through
people? Right,
school,
yeah.
and you
Private
and all
Catholic
your brothers
school.
have.
Passports since we were 2. Like, so I think the problem with talking about systemic issues is that there's always going to be someone or groups of someone
Like a line of disagreement.
yes, who don't believe in it. And they're like, nah, poor people are poor because they're
They
lazy.
No, it's because they
they
deserve,
deserve it. They,
Yeah, because
that's
they
their
deserve
fault.
it.
And so is there a way to talk about systemic issues that can cut across that? I don't think you can.
I mean, I think that's the definition of a systemic issue.
Ooh, very good. Look at us
Yeah, like-
being educators.
If it weren't a point of contention, it wouldn't be an issue. Like if people agreed on the definition and the solutions, it wouldn't be an issue.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
this is not something we're going to solve tomorrow. We hope the conversation was helpful in thinking about, strategies, recognizing that organizations still have a lot of work to do. We have an imperfect system in a lot of ways and work to be done. But I think also, hopefully, at an individual level, this can help folks get through this a little bit better until some magical utopian day when we solve all of these problems and humans evolve beyond these petty squabbles.
yeah, I mean, diversity is a superpower. It's not something that should be shut down. It's something that
Yes.
creates better, more robust organizations, as proven by
Absolutely.
pounds and pounds and pounds of research, some of which we will link to in the show notes.
And if you have not had this issue or you have not experienced or seen this, talk to a friend.
Yeah.
Ask yourself why.
And it would be great because you never know who's struggling in silence.
Very true. So on that note, we again hope that this was helpful for folks. And if there are ways that folks want to get involved or interested in more professional development, like we said, we'll put all of the links to the things that we referenced, the resources in our show notes. We also offer workshops talking a lot about this. Michael does all of this work on mentoring and resiliency and sense of belonging. And I think that they're all connected. So
Oh, please. Marjorie does all this work on assessment and evaluation and documenting everything,
goal setting.
goals and vision and mission.
This is a whole other episode. But on that note, definitely get in touch. Check the show notes. We hope to hear from you all.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for another episode 52 of the Parents and Professors podcast.
Peace.
Above, we let no cap. Teaching our kids, making moves at the back. Built up, we snap. Pour a little wine, sit back and relax. Discussing all the theories and the social impacts. From belonging to assessment, we break it all down. In the classroom, and at home, we wear the crown. Raising little warriors with wisdom and might. In this chaotic world, we shine so bright. Teaching them the question and to challenge the norm. Together in this storm, we stay warm. Above, we let no cap. Teaching our kids, making